A good day to my 7th grade Talmidim. Today we're going to talk about Rabbi Akiva. I'm sure many of you are familiar, I'm sure all of you are familiar, I should say, with many different stories about Rabbi Akiva. After his first 40 years, he was an Amma Oretz that he once saw a water dripping on a stone and said if the water can make a hole in the stone over time, certainly Torah can make a hole over in me. How he married the daughter of Ben Kabo Savua, how Ben Kabo Savua disowned him, how for 12 years he went away to learn Torah, and he came back in 12 years and heard his wife allow him to go for another 12 years, and he went back for another 12 years, and then how when he came back, Ben Kabo Savua was among the audience, and when he was so impressed with his son-in-law, he did not know his son-in-law at the time, and then they reconciled, they got back together again. And how Rabbi Akiva was the preeminent, the foremost Talmid Chacham of his generation, and how he lived for 120 years, and how he thought Bar Kochba, who we will learn about in the next few days, was Mashiach, and was disappointed, of course, that Bar Kochba was not Mashiach, and then how he died al Kiddush Hashem. So those are well-known aspects of Akiva's story. If you don't know some of them, then please ask me to elaborate. You can contact me in many different ways, including email on Google Classroom or 845-216-1617, 845-216-1617. And besides that, I wanted to concentrate on several other things about Rabbi Akiva today. And I'll show you a little clip, mostly for the fun of it, just as a distraction, about a certain episode which is relating to Menachos, and which is more or less, not quite completely, accurately depicted in the video. In any event, came back to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva's one of Rabbi Akiva's Rabbeim. There were many Rabbeim Rabbi Akiva had, obviously, but one of them was Nachum Ish Gamzu. Nachum Ish Gamzu was famous for always saying Gamzu L'Tova. Right? Nachum Ish Gamzu. He was always said Gamzu L'Tova. Gamzu L'Tova means this also is for the good. Everything in which I'm experiencing in this world is good. Being in, if Nachum Ish Gamzu was alive today, he would say being in quarantine, being isolated for coronavirus is good. Now this is different than his time with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva only reached the level of Nachum Ish Gamzu at the end of his life. Rabbi Akiva, by the way, his name is spelled differently in the Bavli and in the Yerushalmi. In the Bavli it's spelled with an aleph. In the Yerushalmi it's spelled with a hey. Not that makes a difference. I would say Kol Man David Rachmana. Hope you're getting all this down, guys. L'tav Avid. Kol Man David Rachmana L'tav Avid. Everything Hashem does is for the best. And you probably know about this story too, as Rabbi Akiva was once traveling and he was not able to reach a town before the night fell. And he had with him a candle, a donkey, and a rooster. And the candle went out and the donkey ran away and the rooster got killed or something. I forget exactly what happened. And he didn't understand what was happening to him. Well, he said, everything that God Hashem does is for the good. Come on, Rahman, for the good of it. I'm not experiencing it right now as good. It will turn out for the best. And then it turned out that in the middle of the night, bandits came, destroyed the city, and Rabbi Akiva knew how he had a candle on, had the donkey brayed, had the rooster crowed, they would have found him out, and this way they didn't find him out, and was able to escape with his life. So he said, Kol man da'avid rachmana l'tav avid. When Hashem did that, it was for my benefit. Now, it's not the same thing as Nachum Ish Gamzu. Nachum Ish Gamzu said, experience things. If his candle went out, he would experience it as good at that moment. That was the famous story of Nachum Ish Gamzu, which I'm sure you're familiar with. When he went to Rome and found that it was his chest, which he had brought, as a briber full of sand, and he said, Gamzu l'teva. This is what Hashem wants. This is good. I'm good. But Rabbi Akiva didn't have that perspective as of yet. Later he did get it. But at that point in his life, he said, I don't understand it now. I'm not experiencing it as good. So if Rabbi Akiva was in the coronavirus quarantine, he'd say, you know what, right now I'm miserable, but there must be a purpose for it, and whatever the purpose is, eventually will be kind of found out by us. And we'll actually understand in retrospect why Hashem did this to us. But the Nachum Ish Gamzu experienced it in the here and now. Now, the important to know is that Nachum Ish Gamzu came up under different names. Shimon Amsuni, Nechemi Amsuni. Tanoim used to go by many different, Morim used to go by many different names at the time, for reasons which are beyond the scope of a discussion today, although perhaps someday we will discuss it. But Nachum Ish Gamzu was famous for having been Doresh, learning out halacha from every time the Torah said the word S. Please remember this. Write it down. S, Aleph, Saf. Like, let's leave that one out. Beishis Barakim S Hashamayim, the S Haaretz. Right? The word S in Hebrew is superfluous. Ben Gurion, first Prime Minister of Israel, at one point toyed with eliminating the word S from the Hebrew language. You can speak Hebrew very well without the word S. If you think about it. So Nechemi Amsuni, Nachum Ish Gamzu, same person, with Darshan, every time it said S in the Torah, that came to teach us something. Until he came to the words Es Hashem Elokecha Tira. He said, I can't Darshan anymore. Because Es Hashem Elokecha Tira, who else are you supposed to be afraid of besides Hashem? The only Yira one should have in the world is from Hashem. Only fear from Hashem. So I can't darshan anymore. I have to stop. So there's somebody who said to him, Rebbe, what's going to be for everything you darshan till now? So he said famous words. Just Shem Shekibal, don't write them down, so I'm not writing them down. Shem Shekibal Tischar Drisha Kak Kabel Schar Prisha. Just like I get rewarded for having expounded those words as, derived from them halachos, so too I'll be, or other lessons, so too I will be rewarded, so to speak, for refraining from doing so now that I see that my entire system is suspect. And then the Gemara says, Achibor Rabbi Akiva, until his Talmud Rabbi Akiva came, and he figured out what to darshan for him as Hashem Elokecha Tira. S, he said in this case, is L'Rabos Talmidei Chachamim. One should have awe and fear of Talmidei Chachamim, akin to the awe and fear that one has about Kodesh Baruch Hu. So Rabbi Akiva was darshan, learned from Nachum Ish Gamzu, and expanded on this idea of every single thing in the Torah has a profound understanding and meaning. And with this, he had a tremendous machlokas with his friend and colleague, Rabbi Shmuel. Very often you'll find Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva arguing on many things in Shas, and Rabbi Shmuel holds of a principle, which is the almost opposite of Rabbi Akiva, and therefore they had so many different arguments. Rabbi Shmuel holds of, you're going to write this down, of course, right? Dibra Torah B'Lashon. Oops, left out a word. Dibra Torah B'Lashon B'nei Adam. The Torah speaks in the language of human beings. In other words, there are words in the Torah which are there not because they're to be expanded from, but rather there's something which they are there because that's the way people speak. The Torah speaks the way people speaks. And for example, if it says Shema Tishma or Shema Eshma, so the Rabbi Akiva would want to know why both words were there. Why wouldn't one word be enough? Rabbi Shmuel would say Dibra Torah K'Losh B'nei Adam. Torah speaks the way human beings speak. And they had a tremendous machlokas about this, which is in both Shasim. Throughout Shasim, about which drushes to or to not make, based on, do we say that every single word is B'darshan, or Dibra Torah K'Losh B'nei Adam? In fact, they even had a machlokas about a very basic ideas such as how to darshan, do we darshan, well, this would be a bit beyond the scope of our discussion, but at the end of Karbonos, there's a price of Rabbi Shmuel Meir V'Shloshes Midas Torah Nidreshes poem. The Torah is expounded by 13 different methods, and the methodology which Rabbi Shmuel implies is klal uprat, prat u klal, generalization, specification, generalization, etc. Rabbi Akiva had a different system. Rabbi Akiva's system is called ribui umiut, the inclusion or exclusion. And I don't want to get into that because the scope of it is beyond what we can cover in the amount of time which I would like to limit myself to. I can hear applause there in the background. But for now, for the time being, just to understand that this is a global approach and a different approach came Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel. And this idea of Rabbi Akiva's digging out mining out every single last nugget of meaning is expressed by the famous Gemara Menachos, where Moshe Rabbeinu has a conversation about Kodesh Baruch Hu about Rabbi Akiva. And again, the clip I'm about to show you, it's nice, but it's not 100% precise, so we'll discuss afterwards what to get from it and what not to get from it.
Studio Podcast.
6 days in San Francisco, 6 stories, 12 artists.
Studio Godcast.
When Moses ascended to the heavens, he saw the letters of the Torah that he had received from God and given to the Jewish people. Each letter had been perfect and carefully crafted according to God's instructions. But now there was a crown on the letter Tzadzi he'd worked so hard on. And wasn't the letter Ayin perfect the way it was?
Hey, God, what's going on here? Why are you attaching these things to our letters?
God explained to Moses that these symbols were crowns. In the future, people would be building and expanding the text he'd received.
Can you show me?
Many years after your time, God said, there will come a man named Akiva ben Yosef who will be a great teacher to thousands of students. His lessons and insights will crown your words. In times to come, people will learn our laws and build on them. They will interpret them for the times and make sure they will last. Moses was confused. The students were learning a law that he did not recognize. What had become of his teaching?
Rabbi, I'm confused about the source of this law. How do we know we're supposed to do it this way? Where does it come from?
We learn this from the text in the Torah. It was given to Moses at Mount Sinai and passed down in oral tradition. It's our job to learn and expand it.
Everything was rooted in those words given from God, and the law expanded with the crowns.
So if there will be such a great teacher, why did you give the Torah to me?
But God told him, "Be silent, for this is what I have decided."
What a great teacher. He must have gotten such a wonderful reward.
Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad.
Master of the universe. Such Torah. And such a reward?
But God told him, "Be silent, for this is what I have decided."
Okay, so now that you've seen the clip, you can understand that it's not precise. There are, for example, it says Moshe Rabbeinu actually came to the Shir of Rabbi Akiva, and it doesn't say there that Rabbi Akiva was adapting the Torah in any way, shape, or form. That's trying to make it as if Rabbi Akiva was not just expanding, perhaps, but also perhaps changing. But Chas v'Shalom, Rabbi Akiva did not change anything. Rabbi Akiva added a tremendous amount. And when it says it's based on the verse in the Torah, it's not based on the verse in the Torah necessarily. It's based on all Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva answered, everything I say is based on halacha l'Moshe Sinai. In other words, of course, not everything is inside Torah Shebiksav. Some is in Torah Sheba'al Peh. The Torah is transmitted Ba'al Peh verbally to Moshe Rabbeinu Sinai. But this much is true. Rabbi Akiva was Dorish Tagim. He went and he expounded the crowns of the letters. right? What's symbolic in this is that the Torah has inside of it so much to be unpacked, which Moshe Rabbeinu did not have to know. It wasn't necessary for his time, but it's going to be necessary for much later in history. And this, again, was something which Rabbi Akiva would darshan, and Moshe Rabbeinu had put in there, but had not known he was putting in there because it wasn't necessary in his time. And when it says, there's a Gemara that says, Kol Masha Talmid Vasik Asli Echadish Nitno Moshe Rabbeinu Mar Sinai, everything which any student is eventually going to come about with a novel idea was given to Moshe Rabbeinu. It doesn't mean Moshe Rabbeinu was aware of it. It means that everything comes through Moshe Rabbeinu. He was the pipeline from which Torah came. And Rabbi Akiva is also called the pipeline. Moshe Rabbeinu is the pipeline of Torah Shebiksav and Halacha Moshe Messiah, which is the base of Torah Sheba'al Peh. And Rabbi Akiva is the pipeline of Torah Sheba'al Peh in its expanded form because it was he and his Talmidim, such as Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon, which is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and others who were the ones who constituted the primary bulk of the Mishnah, which is Torah Sheba'al Peh. It is symbolic, and you should make sure to write this down as well, that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, who brought the Mishnah, edited the Mishnah, was born on the day Rabbi Akiva was killed. And that means to tell us that there was a continuation from Rabbi Akiva to Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, encompassing the totality of the Mishnah Torah Sheba'al Peh of the period of the Tanoim. So Rabbi Akiva being Doresh Tagin means that he found layers of meaning in the Torah which were there, put by HaKadosh Baruch Hu for a time to come. And sometimes we find this expressed by Chazal as Mokami Nichuli Avoisai Lizgaderbo. Hashem left me a place to make myself a name. In other words, the Chidushim which HaKadosh Baruch Hu left for later generations to find in his Torah. Now, of course, Rabbi Akiva, as we know, died a horrible death at the hands of the Romans. This death at the hands of the Romans happened relatively later in history to where we are now. We're talking about the period after the Churban, and Rabbi Akiva was killed after the rebellion Bar Koziva, Bar Kochba, which was in the 120s. So we're skipping ahead from the 70s to the 120s. But we'll come back, obviously, to the period. But, of course, Akiva's death, because that was, you know, from one of brachas, as Tamim said, how can we see this, and what is this? And Rabbi Akiva says, no, it's called Yomai. My entire life, I was looking for Masa Yavo Mikra Zeli Yodi Bakaimena. Will I be able to fulfill this pasuk? And the way the Bali Machshava, the great Jewish thinkers, understand this, it means he was waiting his whole life to come to the level of Nachum Ish Gamzu, to experience even something which was horrific and terrible and painful as something which is in the moment the utmost good. So Maharami Rutenberg goes so far as to say, I don't think he means literally. I think he means spiritually. A person who's killed al Kiddush Hashem experiences no pain, because again, I don't think it's literal, but Rabbi Akiva, he was so wrapped up in his dveikus and Kodesh Baruch Hu, and accomplishing that idea of Gam Zula Toiva, this is also for good, that he was so happy at that point. And that's Kodesh Baruch Hu gave Rabbi Akiva that opportunity to fulfill that ultimate Kiddush Hashem and that ultimate Gam Zula Toiva. So the Zu Torah v'Zu Schora, what the Malachim says, this turn its reward, to a certain extent, yes. There are certain madrigas which we cannot contemplate because we could never attain them, which Tanoim and other great people attained. So, Rabbi Akiva, again, as I said, is the major source of our Torah from the time of the Tanoim, by him, through himself and through his Talmidim. Rabbi Akiva was also at Yavne, together with the other Chachamim, but he primarily lived in Bnei Brak. We don't know where Bnei Brak is. So where Bnei Brak is probably approximately where Bnei Brak was at the time of the Tanoim, but where the Bnei Brak is, where Ma'asav Yuchachamim Mesuvim Bnei Brak, but on Agada takes place, we don't know precisely where that was. But in any event, it was near where it is today, and that's where Rabbi Akiva functioned primarily. We also know about his Talmidim, they died, changed Firas Omer. There are sources, which I don't think necessarily we should accept, but our sources would say that Gemara really hints that Rabbi Akiva's were the students involved in the rebellion against the Romans, and they were the ones who died. In order to hide the fact, kind of like self-censorship, that they died in the rebellion against the Romans, we say they died in a plague. But if that's true or not true, the result is the same. Why they died? For that, we Chachamim had to comment what exactly the reason for the death was, and we understand that it was Shalonogu Kavod Zeh B'Zeh. They did not have sufficient honor for each other. So that's Rabbi Akiva. For today, I'd like to end with one other thing, which is, and of course, we should write this down as well as all the other things I told you. In this period, also, we have the appearance on the scene of Onkelos. And Onkelos was, as you know, the person who translated, based on previous sources as well as his own knowledge, the Torah Torah into Aramaic. And he was a ger. He was the nephew of the Roman emperor. And this is a time, of course, after the Churban, before the Bar Kokhba rebellion, in which to become a ger from a Roman background, especially from a royal Roman background, was pretty impressive. Because obviously persecution was rife and horrible. And as you probably know, there's a story in the Gemara Gittin where Onkelos is said to have spoken to the three great troublemakers for Am Yisrael, to Bilam, to Titus, and to Jesus, and asked them whether to convert, or whether it's good to be Jewish, and two of them said yes, and one of them said no. But without getting into that for today, again, Onkelos was endangered by this, and his uncle sent for him several times to come, and each time, as you know, Onkelos converted the soldiers who came to take him, until finally the emperor gave up. So we see that even when Am Yisrael has been downtrodden, and the very enemies who stepped on them find we find them coming towards us and taking by themselves belev shalem, with a complete heart and with a complete dedication and with tremendous accomplishment, becoming gerim and joining us, and that should be a source of chizuk for us for all time, that even at a time when we're downtrodden and oppressed, Am Yisrael still has that greatness which attracts great people as well. Have a good day.